I've been doing my 1 hour of outdoor exercise at night because I find it the most relaxing. My neighborhood is very quiet and I'm lucky to live in a nice area which I've always considered super safe. I used to walk at night even before the lockdown because I live right next to a canal, so there are lots of nice paths that are super pretty at night when everything is all lit up by the moon. Anyway, I was walking last night and decided to go to the shop first because I was hungry, and then detour back to my usual route along the canal. When I was walking, I heard two guys speaking super loudly in German. I live in England, so it was a bit unusual, but not anything that I thought twice about. They looked around 30, pretty tall, and they had caps on, which I remember because they had matching designs, which I thought was funny. They started getting really close, and when I glanced back to look at them, they started jeering, so I knew they were looking at me, which kind of freaked me out. So I sped walked towards the shop, but had to stop at the road. I wasn't planning on getting hit by a car. They caught up with me, but they didn't stop for the lights to change. They just walked across and went into the store that I was headed for. So I shrugged off my hunger and decided to just go to the canal for my walk. I stopped thinking about the men soon after, chalking it up to me being a generally anxious person. I don't particularly like walking past strangers at night, and I'm self-conscious enough as it is without them talking to or about me. Anyway, I complete my walk and I'm headed back home. For the story to make sense, I need to describe where I was stood. On my right, there is the water itself. I am stood on the path, and to my left, there's a big drop that goes straight onto the main road. Next to that road, there's a row of houses, and there's a railway bridge in front of me. I have my earphones in and my music is pretty loud, but I think I hear someone shouting, so I take one earphone out, and I listen. But it's pretty silent apart from passing cars on the road below me. That's when I see two men heading towards the bridge, and I immediately recognize them as the two guys who had jeered at me before from their caps. I stop walking as my anxiety floods back, and consider phoning somebody because I irrationally think if I'm on my phone when they walk past me, that they won't bother me. But despite the fact that I've been stood frozen for ages, nobody comes out from under the bridge. I wait, staring at the bridge for a while in complete confusion, because there's no way they could have just vanished. I can see through to the other side of the bridge, so I knew they didn't turn around and walk away or anything, but they certainly hadn't walked through because no one had passed me. After a few minutes, I start to think that I'd hallucinated them or something. I have no history of hallucinations, but I couldn't explain it any other way. So I started slowly walking towards the mouth of the bridge, and just as I'm about to step in, I see it. The shadow of one of the men cast across the wall. My blood literally ran cold as I realized what was going on. They were waiting for me on the other side of the bridge, but they must have been hidden behind the abutment so I wouldn't see them. My mind went to a million different places, panicking about what they would do if I walked under that bridge. I was convinced they would just follow me. If I stayed where I was and phoned for help, I was certain they would come out to see what was going on, and I would be trapped. I did the only thing that I could think to do. I quietly ran to the fence that separated the canal path from the drop to the main road, and I climbed it. It was only about up to my thigh. And on the other side, there is a small space before the wall and drop itself. I waited for a couple of moments as the cars passed, but thankfully, I live in a quiet area, so the road was soon empty. I managed to navigate myself so I could lower myself off the drop without A, making much noise, or B, hurting myself too much. And the moment my feet hit the road, I raced to the side where the houses were, and I sped walked down that path as fast as I could without making noise, only glancing back when I was nearing the end of the road. The men were still there next to the bridge. I could see that they were looking through the bridge to see where I had gone to. I felt sick and terrified, but I made it home. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know who they were, if they'll be there again tonight. But I do know that I'm not going to be walking at night for a very long time. Strangers under the bridge. Let's not meet. This could maybe be nothing, but it seemed really weird. So, I was walking around my neighborhood because I'm living with my parents, and I wanted to smoke a little before going to bed. And I didn't want to smoke inside and stink up the place. I figured there would be nobody walking around since we were on lockdown and it's nearly midnight. And even if there was someone walking around, it's unlikely that they would care that I was smoking. About 5 minutes after I left my house, I see a black pickup truck drive past me. I don't really take too much notice of it because you still occasionally see people driving around. I get to the end of the street where he drove past me, and I see him again driving back up the street. I just assumed that he forgot something before setting off and was driving back to grab it. I walk for another 5 to 10 minutes and I see him drive past me again. I start to get a bit paranoid at this point because for him to drive past me this third time would mean that he was driving in a complete opposite direction he was originally driving, and because I'm smoking and listening to a true crime podcast. I realized that walking around alone at night while smoking and listening to podcasts about serial killers is a recipe for paranoia. Yeah, I'm stupid, but I'm usually completely fine. I know my area well and it's easy to spot anything out of the ordinary. So I carry on walking, but I go in a different direction to what someone might expect had they seen me walking at night, just in case he was following me. And I'm not really listening to the podcast anymore, just looking out for this black pickup truck. But lo and behold, guess who I see driving past me again? At this point, I'm absolutely crapping myself because for him to have driven past me again, he would have had driven in a very specific way. So I can only assume he's following me. I then proceed to stop walking and just face the truck as it's driving towards me and stare him out. This is probably a very stupid idea, as I have no fighting experience and it's not like I'm super strong or anything. But I wanted to make it seem like I wasn't scared of him, and I was ready to defend myself if he decided to pull over and attack me. Despite the fact that I was terrified of him, and I would probably lose a fight. But the weird thing is that he didn't even glance at me. He just looked straight ahead and kept driving. I find this weird for two reasons. One, because there is no possible way that he didn't notice this was his fourth time driving past me. The road and the path that I'd been walking on were very close proximity and there was no one else out. And two, because I literally stopped in my tracks to stare him out. He would have noticed this, as it's not very often that people stop in their tracks just to stare you out driving. He drives off again, and at this point, I'm freaked out. So I run to a thicket that someone who doesn't know the area well would know about, so that he couldn't see me from the road. I call my friend who lives nearby and basically say, "This is gonna sound strange, but there's a black pickup truck just driving around our neighborhood over and over again." My friend is like, "Okay, let me go check." We're on the phone and he's outside looking down the street for his truck. I ask, "Do you see him?" And he says, "Nah, I can't. Wait a minute." And he goes silent for a few seconds. Holy crap, that's him. Crap, I'm going inside. What the heck? So, I'm hiding, still on the phone to my friend after he goes inside. Luckily, my friend has cameras outside of his house, so he's watching his monitors as we're chatting. This truck drives past his house another 2 times in the span of about 5 to 7 minutes. We both agree that this is really weird, and I called the police a non-emergency number to report it, and they tell me that they'll send a unit down to check it out. I then call my dad to pick me up, and he comes straight away to get me because he doesn't care about me smoking and he's an absolute hero. I get back home and I ring my friend to ask him for updates. This black truck drove past his house 15 times in the time it took me to get back home, which took maybe 20 minutes. After the 15th time, he saw a police van driving down the street, and we didn't see the black truck again, so maybe the police found him. But they haven't updated me, so I don't know. I tried to logically figure out an explanation for it afterwards. I thought maybe he was a pizza delivery man, but that didn't make sense because he wasn't slowing down to look at the numbers of the houses. And surely after the 20th time of driving around this very small area, you would just bring the person that you're delivering to. Or maybe even pull over and ask me, since I clearly know the area if I'm walking around it at night. And then I thought maybe he was looking for his dog or something. But that really didn't make sense either, because the area that he was driving around was so small. If your dog was lost, he would cover a much larger area than just this one little area 20 times. So, any ideas on what he was doing? This all happened within the last 2 or 3 hours. My mom and I have been trying to catch the ice cream truck all summer, as they have some certain ice cream bars that you can't really get anywhere else around here. We were in the middle of watching a show when we suddenly heard the ice cream truck outside. It was loud, signifying that it was close. I got up and I went to the door. I saw that it was in front of our house, and began to say that it was too late, but then I realized that it was slowing down, not driving away. Now this wasn't an, "Oh, there's someone coming, I should stop, slow down." It was a, "I've been slowing to a stop since before you opened the door, slow down." My mom told me to go out to make sure that he didn't drive away. It was odd, and it was just about 9 p.m., but we wanted our ice cream. My mom came outside and we ordered it. The guy was quiet, but said that he had stopped because he heard voices. No one was outside, and we were inside when we were talking. There was an open garage door a few houses down, but no one was there. He was able to find the flavor that I asked for, but had some trouble finding the one that my mom wanted. I just saw it. I just ate one. I figured that he was new to the job and just nervous, so I thought nothing of it. We paid and we went back inside. Once we got inside, however, I noticed that mine was open. I asked my mom if she had opened it, as she is the one who had both of the treats. She said no. She offered me her ice cream bar, as we both knew neither of us wanted to eat an opened ice cream bar, when she noticed that hers was really puffed up, as if it had been blown up with air. We threw both of them away. After thinking about it for a few minutes, it all seemed so weird. 9 p.m. The music suddenly turned on when we both heard it. It didn't slowly fade in as if it had been on the whole time. It slowed to a stop in front of our house, before I even opened the door. He was quiet and gave us 2 suspicious ice cream bars. He sped away after that, not stopping for anyone else. Just 15-ish minutes ago, I called my mom in front of a garage to tell her that the cats were trying to catch this bug that looked like a wasp or something. As she came in, she saw something through the kitchen window. She rushed me to the front door in the next room, and when she opened it, a different car drove away. I didn't see the full thing, but she says that it was pulled over with the lights on, and quickly peeled out of there when we had opened the door. My dad just came home, and we told him about everything. He thinks it's odd, but that's about it. Sure, the 2 incidents could be 2 totally innocent, coincidental occurrences, but it's too weird. My mom wants me to sleep in the living room on the other couch tonight, just in case something happens, and I have no objections because I'm nervous as hell. Creepy people that we saw tonight. Let's not meet again. This happened almost 2 decades ago, when I was around 5 years old. Like most kids, I always looked forward to the familiar song of the ice cream man's truck when it was passing down my street. My parents would take me outside and let me pick whatever ice cream I wanted. Since I am an only child, they never let me go out alone, even though we were in a fairly safe neighborhood. Anyway, on to the actual story. It was summertime, and the ice cream man would come around somewhat regularly since there were a few families with children in the area. After getting my ice cream one day, the visits from one specific ice cream man became more and more frequent until He was in my neighborhood literally every single day. My mom has an insanely strong intuition, and she quickly picked up on the fact that something was a little off about this guy. She explained to me that it just wasn't quite right for him to be in the neighborhood every day, and that I would no longer be able to get ice cream from him. 5-year-old me was not pleased with this. However, there wasn't much I could do considering I was just a kid. A few days passed without any interaction with the ice cream man, even though he was still passing up and down my street. One day, however, he decided to come up to my door and ask for me specifically by name. My mom was the one who answered since my dad was at work. She was cool and collected at first, but started to really get her back up when the guy refused to leave her front door. I was in the other room, but I could hear him saying things like, "Come on, I brought a gift just for her. Just let me talk to her and give them to her." I never really heard my mom raise her voice at anyone, but she went full-blown mama bear on this guy. She told him to get lost before she called the police, and my father told him to steer clear of our property. At the time, I didn't understand just how creepy it was for someone I didn't even know, who was at least 15 years older than me, to be bringing me gifts and basically begging to see me. Ice cream man, let's not meet. Growing up, I lived in a decent-sized middle-class apartment complex. This took place 1988 to 1990. I was about 4 or 5 when it happened. Since there was only one driveway in and out of our complex, my mom pretty much let me roam around by myself from a very young age. My quarter block of apartments was the first one you passed entering the complex, and my apartment was about 100 feet from it. I wasn't supposed to leave the court unless my mom knew whose place I was going to. I was a very curious and precocious child, and very social. My mom called me the mayor because I knew who a good number of people in the complex were. I had overall had a few run-ins with creeps, weirdos, and a definite pedo, or two over the years living there, but nothing that ever escalated into any sort of worrisome incident. My parents were both pretty tough growing up, and educated me early on street smarts and self-defense, and that it's okay to talk to strangers in certain situations, because not everyone is bad, and how to tell when someone might be a danger to me. We had at one point a particularly ugly, creepy ice cream man. He had a Billy Ray Cyrus type spiky mullet. He always wore tank tops and had really bad acne. He also had really weird teeth and a piggish nose. At the time, I considered him in his 40s, but looking back on it, he was probably in his late teens, maybe early 20s. He loved talking to the other kids about wrestling. I went to his truck once along with friends when he was parked outside of the pool. I didn't have enough money for something, so I said, "Oh, never mind." But he gave it to me anyway for whatever money I did have. But I didn't like the way that he was way too friendly while smiling at me. So, if I heard the ice cream man, I would peek out of the window to see which ice cream guy was pulling into the complex, and if it wasn't him, I would get ice cream. I don't know how much time had passed between my first encounter with him and the last, but in between there were a few occasions where I was coming home or going to a different court, for whatever reason, and if I happened to be walking down the main drive, he would pull up next to me on the sidewalk, and I would just pretend that he wasn't there, and I would cut through a court and hide. He would holler things like, "Why are you so scared of me? I'm nice. You make me feel bad." One day, my mom said that I couldn't leave the court for whatever reason. My friend lived in the corner apartment of the court after mine, so I sat in my court's corner nearest hers. She sat in her corner. We were talking and tossing toys to each other across the parking lot. I heard the ice cream man. Even though I was at the other end of the block, he saw me when he pulled in. He started driving towards me, and I just ran and hid in my court until he moved further into the complex. I waited what felt like enough time and I didn't hear music anymore. I walked back to the corner and my friend had already gone inside. I picked up whatever toy that I left behind, and as I turned to start walking home, I noticed that he's sitting in the parking lot of the court across the main drive, in his truck with the music off. I drop what I was holding. I go to pick it back up, and he's already directly across the street from me, stopped. "Hey, what's your name? Can we be friends? I feel bad that I scared you. I'm a really nice guy." He had on a tie-dye tank top, and his hair was really greasy and his acne was very flared up. I remember just being so repulsed by him. My legs locked up because I was so scared, and mentally I was trying to decide if I would have a better chance escaping through the woods or to chance it down the main drive. "I can't have friends. My mom said so." "Well, let me give you a free ice cream. I feel bad." "My mom says I can't have ice cream." "Okay, you can have candy or soda or a snap bracelet." "Sorry, I can't cross the street." "Oh, that's okay, I'll come to you. You can ride in the truck and play the music if you want." I realized this back and forth was going to be a losing battle for me, so I decided the best thing to do was play along. "Okay, if you turn the truck around, I don't have to cross the street so my mom won't get mad." You would have to leave and immediately re-enter the complex to do that, but it would buy me 20 to 30 seconds. He got way too excited that I seemed willing and he started to drive. I took off running. I got home and my mom was on the phone with my dad, who was out of the state for the day. I told her what happened, and she made me tell my dad, and they both told me how proud of me they were, and how I made some really grown-up decisions. After that, unless I was out of town, I avoided ice cream men at all costs. I still think about that to this day, and always tell that story to kids that I babysit. I just hope I was the only kid he tried to bait, and that no one else had an experience with him, which was worse.